Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James in studio. How you going, boys?
What up, what
Yeah, not
up?
bad. Very good. And tonight we are talking the new Bob Odenkirk action John Wick-esque thriller, I guess.
Yeah,
action thriller.
Action thriller.
Nobody.
Nobody, yeah.
It's good. It's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I want to get straight into spoilers, but
Yeah, spoiler alert.
If you're listening and haven't seen it, go see it because it's one of those, mid-budget, lower budget kind of R-rated, balls to the wall action movie that we keep talking about on the show that doesn't really exist anymore. And every time one comes out, we're like, oh my God, they finally made one.
Yeah.
And actually, it's funny because we had Boss Level a few weeks ago, which was one of those kind of movies. And now we've got this. And like, I'm not getting my hopes up as to the resurgence of 90s style action films. But when these movies do come out, I urge people to go see them.
Well,
so if you can see Nobody... If you like John Wick, you'll like Nobody. If you didn't like John Wick, you might still like Nobody because it's a little bit different. But similar vibes. Same writer.
Yeah.
Similar style.
And, it goes to show you, we talk about it a lot on the show, that you don't need $100 million to make an action movie.
Exactly.
Like, you can do it in, 10 to 50.
Yeah, this movie costs
mid-budget.
around 15-ish.
Yeah, like, you don't need all that budget.
Yeah.
Practical effects as well.
It's all about the stunts and the action.
This movie has a lot
of
of
story and the characters, as we always
exactly,
talk about.
and this movie has a lot of that practical practical element, like the stunts, the action. It's largely practical.
Yeah.
And it's obviously it's not to the scale of John Wick where Bob Odenkirk's character is like killing like 500 people in a nightclub.
Yeah.
No, it's not that kind of movie.
Yeah.
But the stunts are real. Like Bob Odenkirk got old man ripped for this movie.
Yeah. Apparently, he spent like 3 years getting swole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can tell, like, there's a scene when he's sitting on a bus and he's like, before one of the sort of the main action scenes that drives the story forward, and he's sitting there looking dangerous.
Yeah.
And like, this is an older man, and he's like, it's the way he's sitting. You can see like, he's got this shirt on, but doesn't quite like, it's an old man shirt. It doesn't show his full physique, but there's a hint. Like, he can, he's packing some heat.
That ties into the character and the movie, but it's just Bob Odenkirk as well is like known as a comedy guy, kind of transitioned to drama, and now he's doing like action thing. It's really cool.
And he pulled it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Very convincingly.
Yeah. Let's go straight into spoilers?
Straight into spoilers.
All right, spoiler warning for Nobody. Go see it if you haven't. What should we talk about first?
Well, let's talk about its similarities with John Wick.
Okay, so it's written by Derek Kolstad, who also wrote the John Wick movies.
The guy who loves writing a good vengeance movie.
Yeah.
A good revenge actioner.
So, obviously, it's definitely a similar premise in a way.
In a way, look, the stakes that set off the conflict are a lot lower in this one. It's the kitty bracelet.
Yeah.
Like, his house gets robbed by
instead
two
of someone
desperate...
killing his dog,
Yeah.
instead of killing an assassin's dog and the assassin going after him, it's like two home invaders break into his house.
Well, I mean, at the start of the movie, there's a montage of him living his sort of dull existence.
Yeah, which is cool. Like
which
Monday,
is cool.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, and it repeats a few times.
Yeah.
And you can sort of sense the rage building underneath.
Yeah.
As he's like...
It's the tension under the surface.
The tension under the surface. And like, he's dissatisfied with his normal life. It's too boring.
2 kids,
wife and
job,
2 kids, which is what he wants,
House
but
in the suburbs,
But that's not the life he's led.
Yeah.
Up until now. Or up until, a certain time when he did settle down.
Yeah.
And you can see existence is getting weary for a man who just wants nothing but violence.
Yeah, it's literally the same day every day, and it's the mundanity?
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. The mundane.
The mundaneness of, normal, everyday family life.
Basically, yeah. And
starts to get to him.
Yeah, and there's an excuse, I guess, to let loose when his house gets invaded by two desperate, the poorer people, just looking to get some money, whatever. And they're not particularly dangerous because he knows what he's doing. He sees there's no bullets in the gun.
He has the opportunity to completely destroy them.
Because he chooses not to.
Everyone in his life
thinks he's a normal dude, except his wife.
Guy. His wife, I think, knows. They don't ever.
They don't talk about it, but she.
I think, she knew.
She knows more than the kids.
Yeah, But everyone else in his life thinks he's just like a normal kind of
it's hinted at
guy.
Like, there's a scene where she's patching him up, and she says, "I was just
she's
like
probably
the
done
oldest."
that. Yeah, she's probably done that.
So she knows that he can. He has a bit of rough and tumble.
But
in
everyone
him.
else in his life thinks he's kind of a milquetoast kind of.
Yeah, a weak man. Beat a boy. Yeah.
And he kind of gets bullied around by his brother-in-law, and he works at his father-in-law's company, and like, he's just. And his son doesn't really look up to him or whatever.
The only person in the family who really likes him is the little daughter.
Yeah, the daughter. Yeah. And
they take the daughter's bracelet.
Yeah.
And in this movie, that's the catalyst that sets off the vengeance spiral.
The robbers break in, and they can't really find anything, and so they just grab change from the change bowl.
Yeah.
And he thinks
the daughter,
the
daughter thinks that the kitty cat bracelet was in there. And this, because he has, because his name's Bob Odenkirk's character's name's Hutch, and Hutch, he has the opportunity to destroy them because he's in reality an ex-special forces or like CIA.
Basically a government-trained super assassin.
A government hitman,
Yeah, and it's like he has the opportunity to just completely destroy these like thieves, and he doesn't. And then everyone kind of looks down on him.
It's funny that part after the invasion where you've seen that there's that moment where everyone's like, "Whoa, you're not a very good man, are you?" Huh? And then it skips forward a bit, and he's talking to his brother over that cool radio setup they've got.
Yeah.
And then Hutch goes on about the way he saw the house break in from his senses, which is not the way it's presented to the audience at the start.
At the start, you just think, why is this guy not taking a stand? He has the opportunity to disarm,
but then when you see things through his senses, he can tell the minute details of what's going on.
It's like that Sherlock thing where he goes into that vision of actually the gun was unloaded, and this was actually this. And you can tell that why, and then it's like, you understand that one, this guy is a professional.
And that's the first hint to the audience that there's more to Hutch than meets the eye.
And two, he's not just a straight out maniac who's just going to murder people for no reason.
And then life goes on, right? Everyone accepts him as a weak man. And then his daughter's like, "Where's my kitty cat bracelet?" He's like, "I'll be right back."
And then he pauses. He pauses for a second.
And most people would be like, "I'll buy you another one, sweetie." But he was like, "No, all right, I'm going to go get the kitty cat bracelet."
Yeah.
And that sort of events transpire because for some reason he doesn't drive a car. So he takes public transport everywhere.
Yeah.
And that leads to a confrontation on a bus with some pesky Eastern European lads.
Which, this is one thing. So I really like this movie, but... and I understand why it's set up this way. But I was like, is it wrong for me to think the whole movie should have been about getting the kitty cat bracelet back?
No.
And at the very end, he finds it under the couch? And so after all these people have been killed and he's destroyed the entire Russian mafia and he's like beat to hell and his wife's left him, then he finds it. And then that would have been a great crap.
And that credits roll as well. If he's like,
he just rolls his eyes silly me.
So that's how I would have done it. But in the movie, he goes, the robbers, he goes to their, he tracks them down and there are just a poor couple with a sick baby who were just needed a quick score.
Yeah.
And so he decides to leave him. But on his bus ride home, that's when those drunken Russian mobsters get on the bus. Or it's one Russian mobster and his friend.
His entourage,
Yeah, and they crash their car drunk driving, get on the bus, start harassing one of the female passengers. And
Hutch does what needs to be done.
Yeah,
in a very impressive action scene.
Yeah, this is Hutch's opportunity to finally be like, now I get to wreck stuff. Which, and like I said, I understand why they did it that way. It's like, the kitty cat bracelet was just an excuse, and then this is the actual inciting incident. Yeah. But I feel like they should have been connected. Like his whole rampage, and I think that would have been a really strange thing.
It would have been funny if the Russian boss who's looking after was it Olcheg? Obshek. The Russian boss who's looking after the Obshek, he's wearing the kitty cat bracelet. That would have been a cool thing.
To taunt him.
Yeah.
Oh. See, because in John Wick, they kill the dog, and the dog, you don't touch the doggos.
Don't touch someone's pet.
Yeah. But doggos are sacred. But on top of that, it's what the dog represents, which is his last link to his dead wife.
Yeah.
And so obviously, and he's a violent assassin who used to work for the
and in
Russian
those circles,
mafia,
it's all about respect too. The fact that they should have just left him alone to begin with.
And so in that case, it's like when he goes on the revenge rampage in John Wick, it's like, yeah, obviously that's what's going to happen. And in this movie, when he tries to get the kitty cat bracelet back, and then it just doesn't become about that, it becomes about the Russian mafia again. I felt like it's a bit too similar to John Wick, and I felt like it would have been a much weirder, stranger, and better movie if the whole movie was this like, I don't want money, I don't want respect. It's like I just want the kitty cat bracelet because my daughter is the only person I love, like loves me and that I love.
As much as I like this film, I think you said it best as we were leaving when we were discussing the similarities, where you said that this movie can be kind of seen as a remix on a theme, it's like a play on an already defined theme.
Yeah,
that's in a sense that's its strong suit because like the action sequences are written. Obviously, they were written very well in John Wick, and they're written very well. In this movie too. But the weakness is like. The bad guys are kind of the same. Yeah, it's all kind of similar.
Because I was saying, because Derek Kolstad, like he likes to write action movies, like that's his thing, and so obviously he didn't write them to be the same, but he's like obviously this is his wheelhouse.
Yeah,
and so he's working in a similar framework, and one of the reasons the movie can feel similar is because of the style. And I don't know, because it's directed by Ilya Neshala, I think is how you pronounce. He's a Russian director, and like he didn't have anything to do with John Wick, so I don't think it was a concerted effort to make this in the John Wick universe.
No, yeah.
But it's like it definitely feels like
he's working it out of his system in a way. At least that's what it feels like to me. Because it's like, how often can you...
No, but like you're talking about writing, and I'm talking about writing as well. But then on top of that, you got a stylistic look to it that kind of looks like John Wick as well. Not as much John Wick neon-y. Yeah, you know what I mean. So it's
if John Wick was made on a $15 million budget.
Yeah, and it's the middle-aged... it's the middle-aged, like, old man...
if nobody had a $100 million budget, we might be seeing a slightly different...
It's the working-class John Wick. Yeah. It's not the slick assassin in the suit and tie. It's the guy in the polo shirt riding the bus.
Family man John Wick.
Yeah.
I just kind of hope, like, this guy will continue to write good... He'll continue to write good scripts.
Yeah.
I just hope...
He's writing for Falcon and Winter Soldier.
That's interesting.
Explains why that show's pretty
I just hope that he, in terms of his feature films, the next one we get to see is like just a little different, like a bit different. You know, like it would kind of suck if we get into this thing where it's just kind of, like you said, like a variation on a theme again and again and again.
Like I'm fine with him kind of making lots of action movies and obviously repeating themes, but it because I was watching the movie and it is so similar to John Wick. And not all of that was Derek Kolstad's fault because you've got the director who's Russian and who was like, well, the mobs, because the mobsters weren't originally Russian, and so the director came in.
Russian bad guys are in right now. Well.
I mean, they've always been.
They're classic at the moment, particularly like so, the Russian bad guy.
You can see what I'm saying is in the script. It's like if they were just Irish mobsters, Italian mafia, Japanese yakuza, just generic gangsters, whatever.
Yeah.
Like the movie automatically would have felt different to John Wick.
That's true.
Having those like Russian mobsters, that's what the director brought in because he's Russian and he was like, well, obviously we have to have this and do this. And that's fine and it's great. And it makes sense, but it starts to feel like John Wicky again.
Yeah.
And especially because it's not a bad thing. I'm saying it's a bad thing.
No, it's not.
It's just something like watching the movie. I was like, I wish they could have just made it a bit different.
I think it's because if John Wick was like a mediocre film, it'd be like, well, no one would really notice it that much.
Yeah.
But because John Wick is like basically
John Wick sets the standard.
Yeah, it's like the pillar of action movies right now.
If this movie came out first and then John Wick came out, you'd be like, oh, it's like escalating. Like,
this is a lead up.
The guy who wrote it.
Yeah, it's like obviously it's a growth.
Yeah. Whereas this is just another project. In a similar vein.
I agree, and I think like I came out of this movie really just wanting to rewatch John Wick, if that makes sense.
That's kind of what I was gonna say too. I was just like, I really like this movie, but
now let's watch it better.
I was just like, but the John Wick, there's 3 of them for one thing, and also like John Wick, to me, just it felt tighter and more driven.
Yeah, and there's more mystery. Like they try to do a little bit of that.
Building,
they try to do a little bit of that sort of world building in Nobody. You got the barbershop scene and like the gold and all that kind of stuff's in it. It was cool, but John Wick does it better.
The gold thing is also very similar to John Wick.
Yeah, I was thinking like because considering that so in John Wick the background is he comes from this strange world of hitmen.
Yeah, it's like a comic book world of
comic book. It's kind of very colorful.
Everyone's an assassin.
Yeah, very colorful, very exaggerated. Yeah. But in Nobody, it's they're trying to make it more a down to earth scenario where instead of being like a world of hitmen, it's like he was an ex-government operative.
Yeah, it's a black
He has
ops.
a special skill set.
Yeah.
But yet, like things like the barber to me feel like they're straight out of John Wick.
Yeah.
And like I understand that they need a place for him to go to find the information he needs to propel the story forward. But like I was saying after we watched it, considering he has that black background, that black ops background, it would have been better if he walked into some government building, flashed an old ID badge, and then got access to.
Or they already knew who he was.
Yeah, they don't even.
Or a guy in a black van,
and he gets called a different name in every
place
he goes.
Yeah. So that's actually a good point. I feel like this movie definitely could have
leaned into the ops more,
lead into the sort of black ops, and that would make it very different from the assassin world of John Wick. Yeah. And also, I think this because a lot of people have been saying this movie has cartoonish violence, which that is not the right descriptive word.
I think people say that after they see him put the...
It's over the top.
And it's visceral, but it's not
sometimes
cartoonish.
It's comical, but it's not cartoonish and it's not silly.
It's comical in the way, like in the bus fight, he puts the drinking straw in the guy's throat to allow him to breathe. It's like... That element's comical, but there's nothing that's comic book.
I mean, there's guys like get shot in the head and their head blows off, and it's like, it's not crazy.
No.
Cartoon.
It's fairly grounded.
I think this movie should have gone in different. I think it should have been more grounded than John Wick. It already automatically is more grounded than John Wick because it takes place in a slightly more grounded universe, and it's about a more grounded character. But I feel like they could have gone even more realistic with it.
Yeah.
Now, if you do that, you lose some of the quote-unquote fun of the movie. Because this movie is a very fun, entertaining movie.
You want your hero to be able to kick everybody's ass. And if you make it more realistic, then the hits he gets also have to have more weight.
Well, I mean, I like we should talk about the bus fight because it's probably the best fight scene in the movie. The best action scene.
Yeah.
And it's the whole thing that sets everything off.
Yeah, and he gets his ass kicked.
Yeah, he starts getting his ass kicked, but then he feels because he's been out of practice.
He's got to loosen his muscles up.
Exactly. So he's like he lets the first guy punch him in the face, and he's like, all right, now I know, now I'm back.
He gets like thrown out of the bus.
Yeah, and then he comes back in.
He's like
gets stabbed in. He gets stabbed in the leg, and you know it has great. It's shot really well, choreographed really well, and the stunts and the gore and the violence are great. But it also has that great escalation and he starts off rusty and then he starts to get used to it, but then he gets his ass kicked but then he comes back and then he's like, all right, round 2, and then he comes and it's like it shows that kind of character.
I love that scene where he pulls the bar from the bus.
Yeah.
And then he hits the guy with the gun as the gun's about to go off.
I like he gets the where you pull the string to stop.
And he's choking the guy.
He's choking the guy, and the thing's dinging like next stop, ding.
It does. It has great action humor in this movie.
And that's another thing is the movie obviously has a lot of humor. It's got a similar humor to John Wick movies, where it's not a comedy, it's not out and out funny,
but it doesn't take itself all that seriously.
And that's part of the funness of it. And like I said, I think this movie would have been better if it was more serious and more grounded. But also then you lose that comedy side. So on the other hand, there was a couple of moments where I was like, that could have been a good joke. They should have put a joke there. I feel like it could have been even maybe more funny. But obviously they didn't want to make it an action.
It's not a comedy.
It's not an action comedy. It's an action movie with some humor.
Yeah.
So I just watching John Wick, and especially John Wick 2, which is my personal favorite. Like I always feel like, oh, this is it. Like this is so laser focused and like more driven, and Nobody I was like, this is great and fun, but I was like, maybe they should have done this, maybe they should have done that. I don't like that, I felt like it wasn't as tight as the John Wick movie,
and that's probably got a lot to do with the director as well.
I mean as much as we say, oh, movies shouldn't cost $100 million, that's ridiculous. This movie obviously looks great for a $15 or so million movie, but also they didn't have the money to do everything they wanted to do. So there's a lot of stuff in the script that would have been cut out, or that they couldn't have shot. They couldn't have the time or money to shoot. And I feel like if they had a couple more million or 5 more million, we would have got an even better movie. And you can say that about almost any movie. But I think in this case, it's not that, the budget's used fantastically in this movie. It looks great. But also because I had those reservations of like, they could have done this, they could have done that, they should have done this a bit. I feel like I want to read the script.
And see what's
kind of missing. Because I know I was listening to an interview with Derek Kolstad, and he was talking about how, so in the movie, when Hutch goes after, so Hutch beats up all these guys on the bus. One of them happens to be the younger brother of Julian, a sort of Russian mob boss. And the mob boss, he is in charge of the Obshak.
Yeah, which is like the oligarchs' retirement fund.
Yeah, it's like all the collective Russian oligarchs and mob bosses, all their money, like it's like in a movie.
They keep it in one place.
They call it the Russian mob 401k. So it's like their retirement fund.
And they move it around from place to place.
And they all each own a certain percent of it.
Yeah. And Julian, the mob boss, is protecting it at that moment in time when he hears that his brother and his friends have been beaten up
on the bus
by Hutch. And so they're like, who is this Hutch guy? It's very John Wick-esque, except they don't know who he is. In John Wick, everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
And so he gets one of his Russian hackers to find out who Hutch is, and she blackmails like a CIA
clerk. Because all the files she gets are redacted, or like blocked online.
Yeah, and so she gets a CIA clerk to she blackmails him, which is funny, into sending him the file on Hutch to find out who this guy actually is, because everyone thinks he's just a regular guy who served in the army as an accountant or something,
an auditor is what they call him. Yeah,
and it's like he's just like just a kind of meek guy, but he's obviously kicking ass now. And the Russian guy's like, who is this guy? So they blackmail the CIA guy, and the CIA guy tries to log in, and it doesn't. It says restricted, and so he goes down to the file room, pulls out the file, and it's all redacted except it says nobody.
And there's some photos.
And there's some photos of dead bodies or whatever.
Burned out cars.
And then when he sends that to the Russian hacker's like,
I'm out.
Kind of like John
Don't
Wick.
have to pay me.
Yeah, like I'm out. You don't have don't have to pay. I'm not not interested. So obviously Hutch is like a real serious, Black Ops assassin, kind of complete off the record. But in the original script, when they blackmail the CIA guy, and he tries to log in, like his whole computer shuts down.
Oh wow!
And then cool. And he's like scratching his head, and so he goes downstairs. He walks through the office, and there's just like all people walking through the office back and forth, because it's a busy government building.
Facility. Yeah.
And he goes downstairs and he goes to another terminal and tries to log in, and the computer shuts down. And he's like, what the hell is going on? And so he goes down to the basement into like sub-basement into like this vaulted room of like old leather-bound files of like
where they keep the hard copies of sensitive information.
And he tries to find it, and he finds like a file, and it's all redacted except for the word nobody. And then he goes back upstairs, and the office is empty. And
That's cool.
And then the barber walks in.
Oh.
And it's like, we need to talk. And they didn't have time or money to shoot that. And I was like,
that's John Wick
much
too.
better scene.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's a great scene. Like,
wow.
I want to read the script because I feel like, and like I said, this is a good movie. I really enjoyed it.
And that partially solves some, like the one issue I had is like the barber. It's very John Wick.
Yeah.
But that partially solves that because that means like the barber
He's
is
like
more into the CIA
Ops,
world, kind of Black Ops world.
So like I said, I like this movie and it's great, and they do a great job with the budget, but it's like
it didn't get the attention it deserved.
I wish they could. And this brings me to another point, and I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I love RZA as much as the next guy, and the fact that he plays Hutch's brother's awesome, but it's like he just talks to him over that two-way
radio
thing, which is a cool little gadget, whatever. And then he shows up then to save the day. Like, could you have cut that character out, saved the money, and
just
focused that budget somewhere else?
You could have utilized. Obviously, Christopher Lloyd's an older man, but you could have had Christopher Lloyd on the other end of the radio.
Yeah, because Christopher Lloyd's character fills the same
role,
purpose.
Yeah,
and is more interesting because it's his father, and also in the sort of world building of the movie, it's also hinted that he's kind of he was in the FBI and he was possibly also part of the special forces.
Yeah,
and so he fulfills that same role anyway.
Well, they all have the same tattoo.
Exactly, right? And so he shows up at the end anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I personally would have cut RZA out. And that way you could have had a bit of a tighter, a bit tighter world building.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you maybe with the money they saved, they could have had that extra scene with the barber.
Exactly. And also...
Because RZA wouldn't be cheap. Not necessarily.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe he worked for scale or whatever, I don't know, but that's not really the point. It's just like there are certain things in this movie that are great, but also could you have refocused the budget that was going there on something else?
Yeah.
And like this brings me to another point of the villain Julian, who at the start, like he's introduced, he walks into his club that he owns.
The pretty funny scene of him just walking across the road.
Yeah, like he doesn't care. The cars are like screech braking, and he's like couldn't care less. Walks into his club, and obviously he's the man of the hour. Like he owns everything,
and he's singing karaoke.
And then he walks on stage and sings karaoke. I'm like, oh, this is a fun, quirky villain thing.
Is it Sinatra he's singing? Something like that?
I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it? It was a Russian song, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. That's later in the movie. They sing a Russian song.
Yeah, that's later on. I think I have a feeling it's a Frank Sinatra song.
Might be,
and it's obviously it's Frank singing, and it's like him. It's
Mining.
like in the movie, it's him singing, but you don't hear him singing, sort of thing. They're just playing Frank instead.
Oh, that's the second part. That's the second one. At the start, at the first one where he's actually singing.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, but anyway, that's not the point. The point he does the karaoke, comes off stage. And then he meets the oligarch kind of other mob bosses, and they're talking about the money. And one of the mob bosses are like, "Look, your song was great and everything, but
we have to. Are you going to be able to defend the money?"
Yeah, like
you're making a big. He's being too much of a show. He's too much of a showman to be doing the job he's doing.
You're looking like a weakling or whatever. And then Julian just straight up murders a guy, and he's like, "Well, what do you reckon now?" And I'm like, well, that's a great, villain introduction.
Yeah.
Then after that, Julian kind of just stops getting any development. And as a villain, how much development do you really need? He's a mob boss.
He's a cliche Russian mobster.
Yeah. But then they introduce this idea that I think the barber tells Hutch, that word on the street, quote unquote, is that Julian is sick of the life and wants to get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, which they don't really.
And then they never address it again. And then Hutch at the end, after like killing all of Julian's guys and burning all his money and burning all his art, because he's an art collector
except
as well.
one piece, which Hutch takes.
Yeah. And then they do a face-to-face with Julian, and he's got Hutch has got like a landmine.
Yeah, face towards enemy.
And he's got the pin, and he's like, I can blow everyone up, or we can talk, kind of thing, which is cool. And he's talking to Julian, and he's like, look, I heard you don't even want to be in this game anymore. How about we just both walk away? And then he leaves, and then he's sitting in his car, and he's like waiting for Julian if he's going to decide to leave it or come after him. And Julian and his goons decide to come after him. He's like, damn it, kind of thing. He's like, why didn't you just take the deal? Like, now I have to kill all you guys, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is all great, but I need more from Julian if you're going to do something like this. And I feel like I said,
maybe there's more in the original script.
Yeah, that's probably a case too. Whereas like, I feel like there could have been a couple more scenes of Julian maybe actively trying to find out a way to leave, like the life.
There was a scene where you physically see the object.
Yeah.
Right. You could have integrated into that scene where he's looking at it, and he might say to one of his bodyguards, "Is this worth it?"
Exactly.
Like, I'm so tired.
Just much like John Wick, I'm sure there's a scene somewhere in the ether where there's obviously like he's been appointed to guard the object, so there's some sort of council body in charge of like all these like a Russian mobster council, right? Yeah. They could have him going before this council being like, look guys, is there any way I can get out? And they're like, not if you want to leave.
Well, look, even on the phone, like how long left, you know, I want to move it, I don't want to be here anymore.
Or like just the fact that because like we said before, like Hutch beats up all the guys on the bus, and then he like what do you call it, like a emergency tracheotomy to Yulian's brother, because Yulian's brother's like choking on his own blood, and Hutch is like, I want to beat these guys up, but I don't want to kill them. And so he puts a drinking straw in and to saves his life. And so Yulian's little brother is in
the ICU.
In the hospital. And that was a great scene too, when Yulian grabs the chair and just chucks it at the guy. And he's just like, what did you guys get into? And like, so his brother's alive, and then you just never see the brother again, which could be sequel bait or whatever. But I'm like, that could be an opportunity of Yulian sitting by his brother's bedside, and his brother's in a coma, and like talking about how, don't worry, like I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna
be done with this soon.
I'm gonna sell this Van Gogh painting that I got, and that's gonna fund our way out of the life. And don't worry, you know, like we'll, you know, they'll never find us, because I'm assuming if you leave the Russian mob, they kill you. Yeah. So that could have been a subplot, not a long subplot, just a mention here of like
a crumb.
We have to find a way to leave where the mob doesn't come after us.
Exactly.
And then when Hutch meets with Yulian and says, let's just both walk away, the audience automatically knows that this is the hardest decision Yulian's ever made, and you think he might even say yes, and the movie could be very different. And
then it's like,
and
no,
then when
he's
he says
coming,
no, and he comes after him, it's like,
roll your eyes.
It's also tragic for the audience who's just seen Yulian kind of try to figure out a way.
We get this close to meaningful character development, only for it to get taken away.
Exactly. And like we said, this is probably stuff that was in the script, and they just didn't have time or money to film. And like I said, I like the movie, and it's fun the way it is. But like, I felt like if that's an important part of your movie, it's something that needs to kind of be there.
It makes me wonder how much stuff was shot that was left on the editing room floor. Like what decisions were made in the editing process? Because I think like where we're saying that this is like a directing problem, because like you said, it seems like the script was a bit different.
Also, it could be a budget problem.
But I'm kind of wondering, like, maybe the editing just wasn't where it should have been.
You know, it's like I was saying before. It's like this movie obviously is going for more fun, action, over the top. And so obviously they probably wanted to cut it down and for it to be lean, more quick and lean and mean. But I think that's why, and that's why the John Wick movies work also, so well.
The movie wasn't that long either.
It was an hour and a half.
Like you could get away with having a longer film.
I mean, you could do an hour and 40 and it wouldn't be that much of a...
Honestly, I think a lot of it's just the budget, right?
Yeah. Probably. Like, I think time and money. They wanted to do more.
Like, it's only $15 million, which for a movie isn't that... It's nothing, and it looks
really quickly.
It looks like it could be a $50 million movie already.
Yeah, exactly. So they did a great job with the budget, but there are things lacking that I would have liked to have seen. Now, obviously, like I said, that kind of makes it a different movie, and in some ways, it makes it a movie that probably it wouldn't be as fun, and people wouldn't like as much, and so it has less mainstream potential. So I understand why they made the decisions they made, but I was just watching the movie and I really like this, but I wish they did just a few things differently.
Yeah, of course. Look, and we say that about pretty much every movie.
Yeah,
but like, look, we got a good result for what we had.
Oh yeah, it's still a great movie, and
I would recommend people see it.
You know, like it still takes place in an interesting world, and they could make more if they wanted to. And like I would go see a second one, or a spin-off. You know,
it's one of those
with RZA and Christopher Lloyd.
It's one of those. I think he's the gentleman who wrote it is a very talented guy at creating worlds which have more beyond what you see.
Yeah.
Like we say with John Wick, like John Wick could be a whole comic book like franchise.
Yeah. Well, they're making the Continental TV show.
Yeah. So and it's the same with Nobody to probably a lesser extent, because Nobody seems to be grounded in like the Black Ops kind of thing, whereas John Wick, of course, is like a transcontinental society of hitmen.
Yeah, that could be an interesting opposite world to explore though, of like the Black Ops world.
Can we get a crossover?
Yeah,
nobody has to track down John Wick because he's done too many crimes.
I'm pretty sure like this is Universal.
Yeah.
I can't remember if Universal also does John Wick. I assume they like there has to be a crossover. Even if Bob Odenkirk just walks past in John Wick 4 in the background. And people would lose their mind.
You know that scene in one of the X-Men movies where they go to Logan for help and he's like, no.
Yeah.
Like that. It's like John Wick's like, Bob Odenkirk's like, no, on the phone, to the Continental.
You know, like everyone's scared of John Wick. It's like, oh, Baba Yaga. John Wick is like sees Bob Odenkirk's tattoo and is like, I'm leaving.
Don't need the trouble. Yeah,
don't need the trouble of this one.
Yeah.
We'll be right back after this short break. You are back on the Tuesday review, talking Nobody at the moment, the new Bob Odenkirk action thriller.
Yeah, I was as I was saying, like the scene in the tattoo parlor where the guy sees his tattoo.
Thank you for your service, and he runs away.
Yeah,
that was like 10 seconds of him locking doors.
It's like as he's locking all the doors, which is like a funny joke that I was like, this movie could have been even funnier. But I understand why they left it at that level. Or it could have been more deadly serious. But I understand why they didn't do that. But yeah, like that stuff's great. And like I like how every time he tries to explain his backstory to someone, they die.
Yeah. So I think that would have been funny if it happened once.
I liked it the second time. I was like, rule of thirds, could they have done it a third time and it's even funnier? Or would then it just been not being funny at all? But like, because I like the mystery of the film. Like, what is a nobody agent, if that's what they're called?
And
what does that exactly entail? One of my problems is not the right word. I like this movie, yeah. But one of the things I was unsure about is his name's Hutch Mansell. They can find the Hutch Mansell file in his government records. It's just redacted. I'm like, if you're that Black Ops, you're not. You wouldn't.
That's right. You're not on the paperwork.
You would have changed your name.
That's what I said before. I'd like the idea that every government agency or every place he goes, they revert him by a different name.
Exactly, which is
and
why
only his family knows him as Hutch.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind that his job description was auditor. So what they would do is if someone in a government agency, I guess, goes off the rails or something like that, he's the guy they send in to take care of business, which is auditing.
Yeah, he says to the Black Russian, he's like, who's dying, he's like, I never met a Black Russian before. I was like, yeah, I get that a lot. And he says when he's doing the exposition and the guy dies, and he says something like, I was an auditor, like I'm the guy who they send in when they don't, when they don't want to send in, kind of last resort thing. I'm like, that's really cool, but this kind of leads into what we were talking about with the CIA Black Ops thing, where they should have pushed that more and less of the gang, John Wick, mob stuff. Where it's like, it would be interesting if like no one could find his file except for the barber, because the barber is
the only one authorized.
He's still in the government agency or whatever, those kind of things.
They could have had, honestly, the bad guy, they could have changed it to be like someone he let live. It could have been someone, because there's a scene where someone he lets them live, and then he gets jealous of the lifestyle they lead when they. It could have been a situation like that where he does that a second time, and he lets someone go, and then they come after him later on.
Or like instead of like a mob guy, it could have been someone from a rival agency, like a foreign
like they're
enemy.
Closing down the auditor program and they have to
then it becomes Red, that Bruce Willis thing. So they could have done something like that instead. But like I like the idea of the nobody agent, but and like we said, it hints at a larger world that could be explored. But I feel like just in this movie they could have done a bit more to like explain, like they don't have to explain what it is. We know what it is. It's a guy an assassin, but we needed like just a bit more of like, if he's that secret, how come people know who he is? How come that they know the tattoo kind of thing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Like because I'm not sure if it's an interview. I think it was in an interview. They asked about the tattoos, and the tattoo of the two lowest playing cards
it's used in all different military agencies. It's like the two lowest cards you can get in blackjack.
Yeah, it's the worst hand.
Yeah, it's the worst hand sort of thing. And so even it's used in the military today for like, it's people only get that if they think they're hardcore.
Yeah, like, I mean, obviously, like, he probably would have been in the regular army and then the special forces or whatever, and then Black Ops. So yeah, he could have got that tattoo, and people recognize it of like, oh, those are the badass.
But the way it's shown in the film, it's kind of
like I said, this is not a problem.
No,
it's just if like, because when he gets the folder out and it's all redacted except for nobody, I was like, this could be a very different movie about Black Ops and CIA and terrorism and Splinter Cell.
Like Jason Bourne meets John Wick.
Splinter Cell-esque. Speaking of Splinter Cell, Michael Ironside is in this movie. So, but they don't really explore that.
Yeah.
And again, it's probably budgetary and time, and it's not really the movie Derek Kolstad was writing. Yeah. And
look, for me, the only change I would make is, and this is like I said, it's a pretty different movie. But I think that it would have been, because they had that thing where he talks to his brother Harry over the radio.
Yeah.
I think it would have been more interesting if Harry was actually dead, and like Harry speaks to him as his conscience. So he's like, but that way you could include it as like, if he's driving in a car, he could hear Harry talk. Are you sure you want to do this, Hutch?
That's
just all on radio.
That's a very different movie, but I like that.
That's like, I was thinking about that after the film. I'm like, it'd be interesting to hear some like Hutch's subconscious talking to him. Well, do you really want to go down this road again? You're in a happier place now.
That's interesting that you bring that up as well, because this movie has no narration except for two very short instances where I was like, that's weird. Because as someone who hates narration, it's lazy. And this movie didn't have narration. It didn't need it. But there was a bit at the start where they find out that the home invaders who broke into his house did so by putting a pizza box under the electric garage door and propping it open so they could sneak in during the night. And he like looks at the pizza box after the cops have come, and he's like, and then it goes into narration, and he's like, damn, these guys, they, I'm this, this, that, and the other, and they, broke into my house with a damn pizza box. And then the narration kind of gets cut short by someone interrupting him. And I'm like, oh, this is a funny gag. They're going to do the hard-boiled detective narration, but it's always going to be interrupted, or it's going to be something silly. And then never do it again except for on the bus.
Yeah.
When the guys get on and he's like, he's like, please get on the bus. Like, this girl's going to get safe home. I'm going to beat the hell. I hope they like the taste of hospital food, which is a great line. But I'm like, then there's no other narration there. I'm like, this is weird. Either do narration or don't.
Yeah.
I don't really like the two instances. It's very...
I mean, in the way I describe it, it would be more of like a therapy type dealio. You know what I mean? Like, it's not so much him narrating. It'd be Charlie saying, "You know what you just did." Oh, Harry, sorry. You know what you just did. And then he's like, "I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it."
That's actually really interesting too, because then you could bring in his backstory of like, maybe whether it's his friend or his brother. It's like someone who died on his watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they were in the special
together
forces.
And something happened.
Yeah, they were on a mission, and he got the brother killed, or he got the friend killed, and then it's haunting his conscience. And that's like another whole thing, because another subplot of this movie is the whole family dynamic.
Yeah,
of like his son doesn't respect him, his wife. She doesn't seem to really respect, or she kind of, their relationship has drifted apart.
Yeah.
They're not intimate anymore, that kind of thing. And the movie does an okay job of, at the end, they kind of come back together.
It does make me laugh though. It's like, oh, he proved he's a man again. Now I want it again.
Yeah, it's like,
that toxic masculinity really turns me on.
It's like, and for the movie, it's like, okay, fine. Like he got his mojo back, whatever. Yeah. But I'm like, this, ties in with the whole Julian character development thing. It's like, they kind of need to develop that relationship a bit more. It's like, and sort of explain why, not explain, but, explore more of like how, like what he's lost, what she's lost, what they gain together by him. And actually, I thought the movie should have ended with her leaving and not coming back. Because when and this is why I think they should have done the whole movie being just about the kitty cat bracelet, it's like his son doesn't respect him. His wife kind of fallen out of love with him. Only the daughter loves him. And so it's super important that he get that bracelet back.
Yeah.
And so if the whole movie is about the bracelet and he kind of ruins his entire life by killing all these people and bringing death and destruction to his doorstep, and the wife and the son leaving and probably taking the daughter with them, but it's like it meant everything for him to get
that bracelet
back. And like we said, could have ended with him finally finding that the bracelet wasn't.
Well, I mean, you could look at
gone, and that's a different movie where you end it on a sour note, where he's like, maybe he's like dying and he's like crawling.
But I got the bracelet.
Yeah, and he's like, and he's all bloody and beaten.
Well, I mean, you look at essentially the action in the movie is essentially just a way for Hutch to feel in control of his life again.
Yeah,
because the whole reason it starts is because he's like, damn it, like I want to fix something for once instead of just letting the world kind of tread on him.
In a way, it's like. In a way it's that, and I think that's the way it's supposed to be seen, of like he's taking control of his life again. But on the other hand, it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys remember in Hot Shots 2 where
No, I haven't seen Hot Shots 2.
Oh, Hot Shots 2 is great. Have you seen Hot Shots 1?
Not in a long time.
Okay, we have to watch Hot Shots 1 and 2 because they're both good. But anyway, in Hot Shots 2, there's a character who, obviously it's a silly parody kind of goofy comedy film. And there's a character, like a soldier who he's lost his will to fight, and at the end, Topper Harley, Charlie Sheen's character, kind of convinces him to join the fight, and then he like grabs a machine gun and he kills all these bad guys, and he goes, "Thanks, Topper, I can kill again." And it's like a really dumb, funny moment, and in a way, nobody reminds me of that, of like a guy who just wanted to kill, but kind of settled down with a family, got out of the game, and then got an excuse by the home invaders and the guys on the bus to fight again. And if you're going to make that movie, I feel like it should have been darker and more realistic.
It's
and
funny,
ended on a sour note.
Because Hutch is a good guy, but it seems like he's only happy when he's murdering people.
Yeah. and in a way, because the movie is fun and a bit over the top, and because it has that humor and it's not super dark and realistic, it's like, it's just fun. Like, obviously, he's not a real guy. This is not...
No, I know.
But it's like, when you describe it that way, it's like, wow, this guy's crazy. He just wants to kill people, or he wants to hurt people.
Frankly, his whole family, man. You look at... So, Christopher Lee's character, Christopher Lee plays...
Christopher Lloyd.
Christopher Lee.
Christopher
Lee. I mean...
You're speaking of people who've killed...
Either would have been good in the role.
I mean...
Christopher Lee would have killed people on set.
Rising from the dead.
Yeah. Christopher Lloyd plays his father.
Yeah.
And his father also kills quite a few many... Enjoys killing quite a few many people.
That bit where they come to assassinate him and he's got the shotgun under the blanket.
That's great,
and he just blows the guy away.
I guess
and he's like holding the guy's head down when the orderly comes to inspect.
Psychopathy runs in the family.
Yeah.
Big time.
But see, because it's a fun kind of over the top,
you don't really think much
but
about it.
You know what I'm talking about, where it's like they could have done this movie more seriously and it would have been, I think,
real
more
dark.
interesting and real dark and twisted.
Yeah.
And it could have ended.
It wouldn't have made as much money as it.
Yeah, and it could have been It could have still been funny. It could have been like a black comedy. Like at the end, he's like all his teeth are punched out, and he was like, "But I got the kitty cat bracelet." Kind of like it's really, like it's really messed up.
I don't like that ending.
But you know what I'm saying, right? Like it's so dark and so it's so twisted, but also with a dark sense of humor. You could have done that. But again, that's a different movie, one that's not as commercially viable.
In terms of commercial viability, I looked it up real quick, and this movie only made 20. It made more than it cost, which is the important thing.
Yeah.
It's also COVID.
It's COVID. Yeah, America is still.
I'm hoping it picks up because it's only made 20 million. And this film, to me, should be, in my opinion, it's worth at least $100 million in sales.
Yeah, we're lucky we can go to the cinema. Without fear. I mean, there's still a few cases, but we can, there's not
more or less.
Yeah, UK, America, the big markets there, still super risky. But like, even if there's on demand or rental things, like I urge people, because like I said at the start of the show,
it's a great film.
They don't make R-rated action movies like this anymore. And there's been a couple. There's John Wick, Atomic Blonde, Boss Level. Other than that,
we whinge a lot. We whinge a lot, but this is the kind of movie that Netflix should be making.
I think the only reason we complain about this film is because it had the makings of a truly great
and
film.
just because I have quote unquote problems with it doesn't mean it's not good. It's still a great movie if you like.
But
like
you can tell it's a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, but also like if you want more movies like this to be made,
you have to go see.
You got to support them, and like it doesn't matter if Netflix should make this movie. No, we need this movie to do well. And if it's at the cinema, that's great because these movies don't usually come to the cinema anymore. They're not theatrical releases anymore. And so they like
it's a good couple of months for action movies.
But
actually,
but this
just
it's an unusual situation that we're in.
It's interesting because we saw the trailer for Wrath of Man by Guy Ritchie. Because the Gentleman, as you know, was an excellent film.
Yeah.
And so we're like, this seems like a really strange kind of decision. But you never know, right? We're in this trend of fantastic action movies, and Guy Ritchie seems to be doing fine. So it might be, this might not be the last great action film of 2021.
But like,
I doubt it.
I mean, I don't know about that. But like, because John Wick came out and we're like, are we finally going to see the resurgence of 90s style violent action movies? No. Didn't really happen.
Yeah.
Now this movie's come out and it's like, well, maybe if this movie does well, they'll put more effort into trying to get maybe lower budget action movies made and them go to theatrical releases like Boss Level and like Nobody. So that's why I say, like, even though we have problems with this, whatever, like
it's still good.
It's still great, and support it so that hopefully the studios get the idea that this is commercially viable, and we can still have these great action movies like we did in the 80s and 90s, which we don't usually get anymore. Because I want that back,
Speaking
man.
about 90s action movies, man, next week, Mortal Kombat.
Oh, Mortal Kombat. Oh, man, I'm so excited. I'm going to go so many rambles.
You know, I read an interview with the director, and he was saying that he tried so hard to get proper set locations.
Yeah.
So, like, they actually went places, which excites me.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about this on the show before, Mortal Kombat.
No, we'll talk about it next because we're going to do the review next week.
Yeah. But,
so we'll leave it for then. But,
hype. I have to rewatch the old movie.
No, you don't.
I've been rewatching them lately.
Just a live action movie.
I'll give my opinions next week when we do. Yeah, I've got a whole ramble spiel, brewing. But yeah, this is about Nobody. Good movie. Check it out. And yeah, it's just like I said, it's good to see an R-rated action movie.
Yeah.
Even if it had flaws or whatever.
Even with the flaws, it's still better than 99% of action movies that come out.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and yeah, we need more of these. We need much more of them because
look,
there's not a lot.
Good quality popcorn movies.
Come on, Netflix, Amazon, anyone. Like, you're putting $100 million into a TV show that turns out to be a dud. Just surely take a tenth of that and making it good action movie.
Exactly. And, you know, sure, not only Derek Kolstad, but a lot of other great action scripts are out there that just never get made or get nerfed into PG-13 movies.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, man, we need that. We need that time back in the 80s and 90s where you could go to the movies, see a kids movie, see a family movie, then see an adult movie, see an adult drama, see an violent action movie. We need variety and we need entertainment for mature audiences.
Everything's
not
made
just
to the
kids.
Everything's made to the biggest base now.
I
Exactly.
mean, it's interesting. So, people don't listen to us, but if you are listening, I mean, go.
Hey, man,
see all
Disney listens to our show.
Apparently, see all kinds of different films because that's a part of the problem. Is people only go to see the tentpole Disney. Yeah. They only go to see the tentpole animated and the superhero movies generally.
Yeah.
Like people need to consume all kinds of movies, so all kinds of movies can get made. Which will help boost these action films.
But as we discussed, it's harder and harder for people to go to the movies because, especially in Australia, there's not a lot of cinemas, and the ones that the ones that play a lot of these movies are far away. You very select cinemas, select releases, and on top of that, it's very expensive now to go to the movies. So it's like, yes, it's hard, and that's why we say if you can do it, do it. Obviously, don't. If you can't, don't.
But even if some of these movies come to rentals.
Well, Amazon Prime Video's new rental store, like in the app, is actually doing quite well. They're getting movies quite soon after.
Yeah, they had a lot of new release movies on there last time I checked.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Another thing, obviously, this is a conversation for another episode.
Yeah.
But also, movies are hamstrung now by, we'll say, mostly Chinese production companies that are making movies with the Chinese censors in mind, which have a lot stricter, we'll say, rules and regulations regarding like nudity, violence.
Yeah.
So getting the adult movie made to begin with can be harder if the movies are being bankrolled by these companies.
Yeah, they're not only looking for the biggest audience in terms.
And there's a good South Park gag.
Yeah.
With that, where they're writing a movie script,
there's
a general standing over, be like, no, take that out, take that out.
I mean, we talked about this once on our ratings and censorship episode, where it's like, it's gotten to the stage now, it's where it's like they don't just cut the violence out later or whatever. It's like at a script stage.
Yeah, they
alter
it.
It's
more important.
Nerfed.
So it's almost more important than we support movies like Nobody.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, there still needs to be a demand. The studio still needs to see a demand for these types of movies, so they don't just go the easy route.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
One more thing. The director, I didn't get to talk to us about this. The director, Ilya Naishala, whatever his name is, Russian guy, he did a movie called Hardcore Henry.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Which I watched not too long ago, where for the first time, where it's like the whole movie is first person, and it's like it's basically just a live action first person shooter kind of video game, but an action movie.
Yeah. Was it any good?
It's good. I recommend it.
I feel like it'd give me like not vertigo, but I feel like
there's a couple of moments where it's a bit wobbly, but I mean it's a lot wobbly, but it's a couple of moments where you get a bit. But no, it's fine. But my point was, he was kind of known for that movie and known for a few music videos that he did in that style, like first person kind of GoPro, like action, parkour, kind of shooting explosions. And it's great to see this movie, which is more of a classic.
It's definitely
film.
It's an evolution, yeah.
Yeah, and it's good to see that he wasn't just that guy who did that gimmick. Like he can make
He's got chops on him, yeah.
And so I'll be interested to see what he does next, especially if he gets more of a budget.
He seems to have a really good sense for choreography and movement.
Well, yeah, even in Hardcore Henry, like that whole thing is just like stunts and guys jumping, explosions, and like, because the whole thing is shot from the first person. And so not only is the guy doing crazy things, but then people around him in vehicles, and it's all sorts of crazy stuff. It's really cool, but it's good to see that he can do that in a sort of more refined, traditional setting. And it'll be interesting to see what he does next. Hopefully more violent action movies, and hopefully he doesn't get snatched up by a Marvel type deal and just makes a kind of
an okay superhero movie that will be like, it was fine.
Hopefully he gets to make crazy over the top
Stay
stuff.
Independent.
And I'll be interested to see what Derek Kolstad has up next, because his work on Winter Soldier, Falcon and Winter Soldier, obviously there's heaps of writers, but obviously his work on John Wick and this movie and Falcon and Winter Soldier, really cool. And I'd be interested to see what he's got up next for us.
Definitely. That is just about all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for listening, everybody. Please like and share the Facebook page, the Twitter, the Instagram. Smash the like button, ring the bell. You can listen to all the podcasts on Spotify, Shout Engine, iTunes, wherever you listen. Adios, cousins.
Adios.